What film are we doing this week? What do you mean we're not? Of course we are. What do you mean there aren't any left? Hello lovely people of YouTube and welcome back to Mark on Life and for the last time, Ghibli time! That was so croaky, sorry. As you can hear from my slightly croaky voice, I am ill for Christmas. Yay! Thank you so much for everybody who watched last week's episode, which was when Marnie was there. If you haven't seen that episode, I will leave a link in the description and at the end of this video. So as I said last week, we're not covering a film this week because there are no more. So this week, for our sort of wrap-up finale, I wanted to go through everything we've covered so far and make a nice end to Ghibli time. So what did we learn about the company? Well, for those who didn't know, we learned that Studio Ghibli was a Japanese animation studio. The name Ghibli was named after the Sirocco, the sort of hot winds over the Mediterranean basin. And we learned very specifically that the word is pronounced Ghibli, not Ghibli. The word comes from Arabic and Italian, which is Ghibli, but very much the Japanese pronunciation is Ghibli. We also learned that there is a museum in Mitaka, just outside Tokyo, which is where this t-shirt comes from. I actually noticed that when I wear it this close up, you can't actually see that there's writing on it, which is my mistake, but that's where it comes from, as did he. So, let's go through the movie, shall we? We start in 1982 with Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Not an official Ghibli, but we wanted to start there. An epic of bugs and war and that kind of thing. It's the same people, it's an honorary Ghibli, and that's where we wanted to start. It was also the first Miyazaki and Hisaishi collaboration, so it's got to be on there. Jump forward to 1986, the first official Studio Ghibli feature animated movie, Laputa Castle in the Sky. Another fantastic epic, a bit like Nausicaa, this time with a slightly different story, but introducing one of our greatest characters, the Laputa robot, who is standing on the roof at the Ghibli Museum. Forward to 1988, and we have an interesting one. We have a double bill. We have My Neighbor Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies. My Neighbor Totoro was one of the greatest movies ever released by Ghibli, including their now mascot of the company, Totoro himself, and Grave of the Fireflies. They were done as a double bill because they didn't think they'd be successful enough by themselves. One sort of fantasy charming one educational one. So that's how they did it. On to 1989, Kiki's Delivery Service. One of my favourites, story of a young girl who is a witch making her way in the world, crossing the world to a new town and finding herself. It's a brilliant one. 2 years later, 1991, Only Yesterday. A smaller film, this one, and was actually re-released recently with a brand new English dub. The year after that, 1992, we have Porco Rosso. Interesting, the only Ghibli film where the Western title is not English. It's Italian, Porco Rosso. Kind of red pig or crimson pig. Interestingly enough, it wasn't supposed to be a feature film. It was supposed to be an in-flight movie, a sort of short movie for a plane company. But plans changed, and that's the way it went. Another year later, 1993, and we have Ocean Waves. A TV movie. So not officially a sort of theatrically released animated feature from Ghibli, but it's definitely Ghibli canon. Very overlooked one, but a charming little movie. Year after that, Pom Poko. Possibly the oddest film in the Ghibli canon, starring the Tanuki, the sort of raccoon dogs of Tama Hills in Western Tokyo. Amazing little film, completely odd, but yeah, you got to check it out. Year after that, 1995, Whisper of the Heart. And Whisper of the Heart is a movie of firsts. It was the first Ghibli not to be directed by Miyazaki or Takahata. It was directed by Yoshifumi Kondo, who unfortunately died before filming another one. It was the first Ghibli also to use digital composition. Not full digital computer animation, but digital composition. And lastly, it was the first Ghibli to have its own spin-off, which we'll mention in a minute. A couple of years later, 1997, Princess Mononoke. An absolute epic of the Ghibli canon. Maybe the biggest, maybe not quite the biggest, hugely successful, incredible film, one of the most popular, don't need to say anymore, it's amazing. 2 years later, 1999, My Neighbours, the YAMADAS. Very, very different style. It's Takahata this time, and you can see it. It's the first Ghibli that had all digital animation. And it had to do that because of the sort of watercolor style of the animation. When you watch it, you'll know exactly what I mean. Again, often overlooked because it's not a sort of fantasy epic, but a great movie. 2 years later again, 2001, Spirited Away. This is probably the jewel in Ghibli's crown. The greatest, most well-received, critically, most financially successful movie of all the Ghiblis that have ever been. If you introduce Ghibli to someone, it's probably with this film. It's absolutely fantastic. It might be my favourite as well. I can't recommend this one highly enough. If you're going to start, probably start there. Spirited Away, sensational. The year after, 2002, The Cat Returns. Actually intended to be a film for a theme park, again a short which was then developed into a longer one, and, as I mentioned before, is the spin-off or sort of spiritual sequel to Whisper of the Heart, featuring the cat, the Baron character, which has never happened before or since. 2 years later, 2004, and we have Howl's Moving Castle. And we're back to the epics, and now Hollywood stars are starting to line up left and centre. We've even got Billy Crystal playing Calcifer, the fire character, you know what I mean? So this is when Ghibli, after Spirited Away won the Oscar, it's really starting to motor now and be noticed by the world. 2 years later, 2006, Tales from Earthsea. A slight downturn from Ghibli in my opinion. It was the first film by Goro Miyazaki, Miyazaki Sr.'s son, and it's a slight misstep. It's an epic, but it's quite slow, it doesn't quite know what it wants, and it won a couple of Raspberry awards in Japan. It's still a good film, but probably not quite the level that we're used to. Now we have a run of 3 movies that I absolutely adore back to back. The first of which, 2 years later, 2008, is Ponyo. Ponyo was done with completely traditional animation cells. Even though we now have the digital system, Miyazaki wanted it all done traditionally, including the water, which he did himself. It's an incredible movie, Ponyo. Again, this is possibly one of my favourites as well, so go get it right now. 2 years later, another cracker, Arrietty from Mary Norton's story, The Borrowers. Not the only Ghibli to be borrowed from source material, or Western source material even, but it's absolutely beautifully done. Incredible soundtrack on this one, so go check it out. The year later, 2001, From Up on Poppy Hill. This is the second film from Miyazaki Jr., and it's excellent. He really found his form on this one. It's a smaller, more charming, standard kind of Ghibli film about a group of school kids fighting to save their clubhouse. It's fantastic. So really, really good to see a good return to form. 2 years later, 2013, we have not a double bill, but 2 released in the same year. They were supposed to be released together, just like Grave of the Fireflies and My Neighbor Totoro was supposed to be, but it didn't work out that way. The first one was The Wind Rises. Sort of, 20, 30 years of Miyazaki's aviation obsession in his head, and finally came to fruition. Another Oscar nom, very, very successful, this one. And then later in the year, November 2013, The Tale of Princess Kaguya was released. Again, beautiful kind of old school animation. Again, Takahata, same style as My Neighbours and Yamadas, from an old Japanese folklore, The Tale of the Bamboo Cutter. Beautiful movie, very long, it's the longest Ghibli there is, 3 minutes longer than Princess Mononoke, but a great movie. And last but not least, the year later, 2014, When Marnie Was There, which we covered last week. Directed by Hiromasa Yonebayashi, it's the last in the current Ghibli canon. We'll talk about a few extras in a minute. A lovely movie, and that takes us to the present. So that's all the standard theatrically released Studio Ghibli official movies. Now there is a bunch of extra stuff, and that's what I wanted to cover in this video as well. I'm not going to cover the short films because there's loads. They've got unofficial ones, official ones, Studio Ghibli Museum ones, which as I said in the first episode, you can't see anywhere else. You can only see them if you get a ticket and go to the museum, which is kind of cool. The next movie was The Red Turtle, 2016-2017. It's not really an official Ghibli. It's made by Ghibli in a collaboration with a French company called The Wild Bunch. It's a very, very good film. It doesn't feel when you watch it like an actual Ghibli, but it's a beautiful animated movie. Then in 2014, there was an animated series called Ronja the Robber's Daughter, made by Goro Miyazaki Jr. I actually haven't seen that, so I can't comment on it, and after this I'm going to go and find it and check it out, but if you do know about it, let me know in the comments. Studio Ghibli have also been involved in games, which I really, really like. They made a game called Ni no Kuni with a company called Level 5 who make the Professor Layton games for kind of the Nintendo DS and stuff. If you like video games, if you particularly like sort of RPG type things, check out Ni no Kuni. It is one of the most beautiful games you will ever see. Graphically, music, fantastic, because it's the same people. Joe Hisaishi did the music for Ni no Kuni. The first game came out on the PlayStation 3 and the DS, and Ni no Kuni 2 is coming out soon on the PlayStation 4, I believe. So go and have a look at that. There have also been numerous stage productions of Ghibli films, notably Princess Mononoke, and at the Southwark recently they did Kiki's Delivery Service, and I'm sure there will be many more. So what did we see coming up over and over and over again in Studio Ghibli? Well, I think you'll probably agree the most common theme is coming of age. Studio Ghibli films almost always use young female protagonists or heroes. Because I think Miyazaki wanted people to, particularly young girls, to be able to relate to these stories. Coming of age, finding your strength, realising that what you have inside is enough. If you find what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, don't necessarily listen to people telling you can't do it. You've got to go against the fight, the struggle, and sometimes life will be a fight in the struggle, but you will find your way through. That coming of age, that finding of strength seems to be the sort of the central theme for all the Ghibli films, and I'm glad of it, because it's a good one. So what is the future of Studio Ghibli? Well, I don't really know. There is a movie called Mary and the Witch's Flower coming out next year on May the 18th in 2018. It's directed by Yonebayashi, who did When Marnie Was There. It's not a Ghibli film though. It looks like one, but it's not an official Ghibli film. But it's made by a Ghibli person, so I'll still go and check it out. The other possibility is a sequel to Ponyo. After Ponyo was made, it was planned to have a sequel immediately, and that never happened. But it's always been in the works. Miyazaki Sr. has always come out of retirement, then retired again, come out of retirement, retired again. And so, I don't know. It's very possible that all of a sudden, Ponyo 2 could just come out. Or the next amazing Miyazaki film could just come out. I have no idea. I hope it does, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. I just want to thank everybody for watching this series. I wanted to start this series just to introduce anybody that had never seen a Studio Ghibli film to the company, to the movies, all that kind of stuff. For me, it was a nice personal journey to go all the way through the films and an excuse to now complete my collection. I now have every single one of them on Blu-ray. Not all the steelbooks, annoyingly, because they're really expensive, but all the Blu-rays. To revisit some I hadn't seen many times, to see them all again, was an absolutely sort of wonderful experience, and I want to thank you for being there with me. So that's it for Ghibli Time. We are done. Next week we are going to be resuming normal service, so we will do an end of year vlog before Retrospectives comes back next year in January. I've already shot one of them. The rest of them are written so I can get on them as soon as I can. So the comedy will be returning come the new year. I'm on all the usual social media places, as you know. Twitter, Instagram are both Mark Joseph Actor, so go follow me there now. Click over here somewhere to watch last week's episode, which was When Marnie Was There. And you know, Retrospectives, which I was just talking about, yeah, click over here to check it out. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching Ghibli Time, everybody. I may be back if another Studio Ghibli movie is released. I may do a sort of bonus episode. But for now, from me, Mark on Life and Ghibli Time, Merry Christmas to everybody. I will see you next time. I will speak to you soon.